Hello, 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 and welcome to Out in the Woods, where we can all be as loud and proud as we damn well please. I'm your host, Jacob, the first loudest and second most proudest, and I'm here to tell you it's time to start the show. Y'all really came back to my closet. Wow. Don't mind the smell. So today I wanted to talk about family. Family is something that's important for everyone, I'd say. But down here in the South, and the dirty South, LGBT folks need some kind of family more than anyone, really. Because we have to put a lot of effort into our blood relation. It's like a balancing act. You don't want to isolate yourself from the people you love, but you also want to be able to be yourself around the people you love. And I know this isn't necessarily universal, but to say that it's rare would be gross injustice, but there are few and far between. A lot of the times, in a lot of cases, there are few and far between family members who will meet people in the middle, and we'll get into that a little bit more later on. But when you're queer, it's a lot easier just to devote yourself to people who accept you for you than it is to keep putting in an effort simply for the sake of respect. Yep, there it is, Southern listeners. I just said the almighty R word. Hear its name and tremble. Respect. Aretha, be with us. It almost feels like a uniquely Southern concept, and I know. The sentiment of respecting your elders is something that's universally recognized, I know. But people in the South take it to a whole new level, literally. Sometimes I can't tell if I share DNA with some of these people, or if I'm in the literal mafia. Case in point, the eldest of my great uncles is, anyway, when I was about 13, I let my dog out. My mom was driving up, she didn't see, and she ran my dog over in front of me, and my dog died in my arms. It was a big, huge thing. It was traumatizing, whatever. So not too long after that, I was at a family function, and my uncle walks up, and of course, I cordially smiled and greeted him as is proper form for a belle like myself. And he straight up made a joke about my dead dog and walked away. I was fuming. When he left, I discussed the incident with some older cousins. And by disgust, I mean, I told them how wretched my uncle was. They agreed he was mean, to put it mildly. And I concluded that the next time he wanted to be an ass, I would have some words for him too. But naturally, I was given looks of worn defeat. The resounding message was, in essence, don't ever stand up for yourself, because ultimately he is older than you, and he is family, and therefore deserves respect. Even though we all agree he is something else, once again putting it mildly, nobody would ever correct him. And nobody still has, actually. He is still out here saying mean ass shit. I swear, it's what gets him up in the morning. I guess I told that whole story just to say that in a lot of old-fashioned families down here, respect is not a two-way street whatsoever. Thankfully, though, I have not been shunned or made into a black sheep? Insulted? Maybe. But what's new? I'm not out to my much older family, obviously, but I also don't bother pretending to be straight. I just act like me. If I could edit sparkles on here, I totally would. Anyway, either my older relatives know I'm gay and just don't want to address it, or they just take for granted that I'm straight with the voice of a sissy. They just respectfully, there's that word again, don't mention it. My cousin, who married a black man, was not afforded the same respect for a long time. And honestly, I'm sure in some back corners behind locked doors, she still isn't. So yeah, I, unlike a very disheartening number of my fellow Bible Belt queers, have not been disowned by any of my family members yet. In fact, a nice number of my cousins are more than just accepting. They go the extra mile. They treat me like the queen I am. And that really makes a difference, which brings me to my next point. Straight people! Hey, thanks for being here. There's some coffee in the next room, but I only have gingerbread flavored creamer from like 7 months ago that I accidentally bought but still haven't thrown out. So, sorry. Anyway, a good number of you are probably a part of somebody in the LGBT's chosen family if you're not already blood related. And do you know why? Because you validate them. You give us a sense of belonging that we mostly only find with our fellow homos. You don't just tolerate us like a lot of people do down here, like the men who won't make eye contact with me whenever I introduce myself to the table. But speaking of that, actually, let's talk about the levels of acceptance that we all face. You know, the word tolerance gets tossed around quite a lot, mostly on Facebook posts justifying shitty behavior from your cousin. We all have that cousin. But tolerance is the bare minimum when we talk about acceptance, because you can hate someone you work with, but tolerate them so you don't get fired. There is no incentive, there is no true compassion or care. That's just the level of acceptance I'd imagine a majority of big Southern families like mine would have. Then there's the acceptance somewhere right in the middle, and I really can't find a word for it, but we all know it. It's a two-sided coin. On one side, you have the people who accept you, but don't go much further than that, feeling a bit of a discomfort threshold around gay folks. But honey, we don't want your sweaty, soapy penis. But thank you anyway for at least believing we shouldn't be persecuted. Like someone who once told me, I still love you, but are you sure I can't buy you a lady hooker just so you can actually try it? That was a real quote by a real person. On the other side, you have only a small step above tolerance. To put it simply, that side of acceptance are the people who say, you love the sinner, not the sin. We all have those family members, coworkers, and Karens in our life. But no matter how you mean it, and no matter how much we may love you, it ain't cute. And y'all, here we are at the top tier of acceptance. What's that word again? Validation. Yes, validation. When it comes to chosen family, we usually go try to find other queer people because it's all one big cycle of validation. It's self-sustaining. Somebody accepts you for every little bit of you. They are invested in you being happy in your own skin, and vice versa. And straight people, hey again, y'all can provide that too. I really can't tell you how big of an impact it had on me when we were riding in the car. me and my best friend. I was 18, and I was just figuring myself out, and I came out to my best friend. And he looked at me, y'all, and he said, "Hey, I love you. You are like my brother. And I always figured this is who you are." Y'all, that, like, there was no turning back after that point. After that, I knew that who I was valid. So, y'all keep that in mind. Now, I'm not saying that members of your chosen family can't be toxic. No, far from it. But the difference is the gender of the person you love or the gender you are inside could never, ever be a deal breaker. And those are fundamental aspects of who we are as queer people. It's even part of the forms you have to fill out when you sign up for Grindr or the gay card. I have a diamond membership myself. Now, here we are, 15 minutes into the episode, and I'm just now talking about what family means. So, I'm personally going to choose the second definition that pops up on Google. All the descendants of a common ancestor. Now, scientifically speaking, all humans share a few common ancestors. Mitochondrial Eve from East Africa, for instance. Look her up. It is fascinating stuff. And please don't at me if you don't want to believe that we came from ancestors in East Africa. That's your problem, not mine. But for real, when we talk about a family that you choose, how do you maintain the definition? I think it's as simple as looking back at our history. Now, we never chose to be born, and we never chose to be born queer. Neither did Marsha Pay It No Mind Johnson or anyone else at Stonewall, or anyone who died in the AIDS epidemic when the government waited till the 11th hour to do, well, anything. These people are the only reason we're able to be who we are today, and they did not do it alone. So why should we? Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. So I titled this episode, How Black Sheep Are Made. And I'm not talking about the assholes or chronic screw-ups in your family when I talk about black sheep. Though, I'm sure there is some psychology deep in there too. I'm talking about the people who naturally don't fit in a mold set up by their family. And that could be anyone and anything. But more often than not, we find that the circumstances of black sheepery are far more social than anything else. The cousins I mentioned earlier, for instance, made into black sheep because people don't like who they are. Wow, shots fired. That's a pretty big statement to make. But if I were to directly confront the family members who are hoisting their negativity onto my cousins, I guarantee I can guess a couple of common things they'd say. And this is based really purely on what you would hear in a more private setting. So, one quote would be, "I love them. I don't like what they're doing, but I love them." Go back and see Love the Sinner, Not the Sin, people. Another quote would be, "Oh, whatever, they're just making a fuss because they want us to have a problem with it. They got a chip on their shoulders, all it is." As they give bare minimum interaction. Those same people are the same people that are like, "I don't care as long as you don't flaunt it." Yeah, anyway. This last quote, though, is one that I am the most familiar with, as uncomfortable as it is for me to say that. But it's sad and true, so. "They know how we feel, so they shouldn't be surprised. If they didn't want to be treated this way, then they shouldn't have made the choices they made, plain and simple." Which is obviously not subtle or backhanded, but it's definitely Southern. Yes, for a culture that claims to be so family-oriented, the Southern populace really seems to have a zero-tolerance policy for anything different. You'll see that last quote word for word in any cesspool of a comment section dealing with Confederate statues and protests and everything in between. Family comes first down here, but that comes with terms and conditions. And within those terms and conditions are exactly where black sheep are made. I guarantee that every single person I interview is going to talk extensively about their family just because of the impact and influence that all of our families have over us at some point or another. Whether that means their family was there for them, completely absent, loving, hateful, indifferent, somewhere in between. It has to be mentioned because we all have to come out. You know, it's that magic or tragic moment. And normally, the first people that we come out to are our family. But that is actually for another episode. So, yeah. Guys, this episode is going to have to be a little shorter than the last one, just because it gets super duper hot in this closet, and my midsection feels like it is being held together by thin little strings. So just remember, if your blood family are pieces of shit, they don't deserve you in their life in the first place. So go out or stay in, get you on the internet, get you a glass of wine, call up a friend, go out to a bar if, you know, they're open right now. Find people who you vibe with, and eventually you can start picking and choosing family members for yourself. You don't have to do this all alone. So thank you so much for tuning in. If you'd like to give me oral feedback, see, I could have gone for low-hanging fruit there, but I didn't. You can go to anchor.fm and leave me a voice message. Who knows, you might be featured in a future episode. Please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen. And last but not least, thank you for coming out in the woods and into my bedroom closet. Mwah!